Good afternoon to everyone. Before we continue with our program, can we just observe a moment of silence for prayer or meditation? Thank you very much. I think we are now ready to start with our program. Before we give over to the Honorable Shiba, our speaker, I just want also from my side to remind all of us that we are busy with a very important responsibility for us as women to make sure that according to what the women at the CODESA negotiations thought was important for us as the women of South Africa, how far we have come. And that is why it is significant that we are at this stage now where we can engage the rest of South Africa to assess what we've been doing and to see how far we have come. And so without much further ado, let me allow our speaker of the Mpumalanga legislature, Ms. Shiba, to continue with the welcome address. Ms. Shiba, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the session, Honorable Sylvia Lucas, who is also the Deputy Chairperson of Council of Provinces. Let me greet you, and also to greet Councillor Mashikos Khobela, who is the MMC for Social Services at Ehlanzeni District, and also to greet the representatives from the Office of the Statistician General of the Republic of South Africa, commissioners that are present, Commissioner Uli and Commissioner Rockman, and to greet all the women that have joined us in this important meeting. Good afternoon, Sanbonan. Chairperson, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all on this important occasion, the Women's Charter Review Session convened by Parliament in Mpumalanga Province. I hereby extend warm welcome to the representative from the National Assembly who have convened us today and are leading this nationwide consultative roadshow aimed at making critical assessment on progress being made in the implementation of the 1994 Women's Charter for Effective Equality. I also wish to extend warm welcome to the delegates and representatives from the length and breadth of Ehlanzeni District. I am convinced this gathering is constituted of relevant women leaders coming from various sectors of society, able to share experiences and make critical contributions towards the required assessment of the Women's Charter. During the year, Program Director, Chairperson of the session, where we celebrate the life of one of our gallant struggle heroines, Mama Charlotte Maxeke. This moment has seen growing levels of concern and disillusionment on the continued subordinate status of women in South Africa. That the colonial legacy of apartheid, which undervalued the role and position of women to minors, continues unabated in democratic South Africa. That while some progress have been made, particularly in increasing representation of women in positions of responsibility, especially in public sector, there remain structural barriers which ensures the perpetuation of gender inequality. This session must therefore make in-depth analysis into some of these systematic challenges that hinder progress in achieving effective equality across gender, race, and class. they should consider our legislative framework, whether effective laws are being passed to enable response to these structural barriers, whether our environment enables transformation of the hierarchized nature of our society, which places African women in particular at the lowest echelons across all sectors. We should therefore use this platform to reflect and make concrete proposals which dismantled patriarchy, so that South Africa becomes a more equal, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous society. An improved legal and legislative framework is therefore required to accelerate gender mainstreaming and access to opportunities in both public and private sectors. To this end, we welcome the President's announcement in his State of the Nation address, SONA 2021, yesterday, of progress being made in the review of the legislative and judicial framework in the fight against gender-based violence and femicide. These review sessions must therefore find lasting solutions and a safe net for ordinary women in rural areas, in factories, in hospitals, in schools, in universities, among professionals, businesswomen, domestic workers, farm workers, shopkeepers, and all other spheres. Our government's commitment to promote financial inclusion for women and young women, equalizing the skills, are some of the serious barriers hindering access to opportunities and progress. As we honor and celebrate the life of Charlotte Maxeke, this generation of women must shift the balance of forces towards the attainment of true equality across genders. This must be our generational mission. This 25 years review session must establish the building blocks for the realization of our historic mission. We therefore call on invited role players in government, civil society, faith-based organizations, trade unions, traditional organizations to fully participate and inject agency during this process towards the building of a non-sexist society. Program Director Thomas Sankara, the late president of Burkina Faso, stated, I quote, "The revolution and women's liberation go together. We do not talk women's emancipation as an act of charity or out of a surge of human compassion. It is a basic necessity for the revolution to triumph. Women hold up the other half of the sky. We dare not fail." Igama lamakhosikazi malibonge. Thank you very much, Chairperson. You are all welcome.
Malibongwe. Malibongwe. Malibongwe.
Bongwani.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shiva.
Malibongwe.
Thank you, members and delegates that are attending this important occasion. As I want to contextualize what we are currently busy with, in meeting with the Ehlanzeni district, the women and people of Ehlanzeni district in Mpumalanga, in our attempt to make sure that we review the Women's Charter. This Women's Charter, or this review of the Women's Charter, followed on the fact that in 1954 and in 1994, the Women's Charters was developed to address the issues of women, particularly the 1994 Women's Charter that came as a result of the consultation of the women that attended the CODESA negotiations, that realized that they will have to, separate from all the resolutions that have been taken there, make sure that the women have an input and the issues that they think is important for women need to be addressed. The Honorable Shiva have mentioned of the issues that the President have raised during his State of the Nation address just a little bit less than a day ago, which gave us hope, because some of the issues that have been raised, at the different events where we have been busy consulting with the women of South Africa across the provinces, of which we are now busy with Mpumalanga and KwaZulu-Natal, and we are left with the rural districts of the Western Cape. And all of us know that in reviewing the Women's Charter, we're actually looking at whether there is at least a move toward an engendered society. There is at least a move to make sure that the national gender machinery respond to the needs and the issues of the people of South Africa. There is at least a move to ensure that our municipalities, our districts begin to budget in an engendered fashion, because in many instances, if you look at the integrated development plans of municipalities, if you look at the budgets of municipalities, if you look at even at the budgets of departments, there is not a clear distinction as to whether there is clear engendering of our budgets, of our machinery, and that is why we had to come to a point where we review this charter that is informing women's legislation, that is informing our national gender machinery, but also informing whether the inequality and poverty that women are suffering within the South African economy can be addressed or are being addressed. So that is why we are together with other stakeholders like the States SA, the Finance and Fiscal Commission, the Commission on Gender Equality, and in all our events that we had before, we have actually made sure that we involve different stakeholders to address the issues currently on the agenda, high on the agenda, but also to assess whether we have made real progress in terms of addressing the issues that is actually informing women empowerment and gender equality within the South African community. With all of that said and done, we are here to listen to those interested parties and those women for whom it is important to see us moving forward as South Africa. So with all of that said and done, we will immediately go into the different presentations that will be done today here by our different stakeholders, like I've already, our partners that I've already inclined. For instance, the States SA, we've been together right from the start of this journey, and I think we've made a lot of progress, and we have actually succeeded in making sure that different spheres of government speak to one another on the issues that is important for us, not only as women, but also for the youth, also for people living with disabilities, and also for our children. Because whatever we are building now is to make sure that in the future, our children will see a brighter future. So with all of that said and done, I will now call on Mr. Neil Roo from Stats SA to actually give us a picture, particularly on Nhlanzeni district, whilst we are speaking about Mpumalanga. Over to you, Mr. Roo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, and good afternoon. Let me just share the screen again. So we just want to see where this presentation is going to be. Just allow me. Okay. I think I should be able to share this now. Okay. Are you able to see the presentation, colleagues?
It's clear, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. Yes, good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Neil Roux. I'm from Social Statistics in Statistics South Africa, and I'm conducting a presentation today on Ihlanzeni District Municipality. But as you will see, most of the information also entails really Mpumalanga and other provinces in South Africa. Part of the reason for this is that data at such a low level it's a very scarce commodity, and part of the reason for that is that it's a very expensive commodity. As you'll see, when we do research, normally a lot of this lower level data comes from things like the census and also community survey, which are of course very large and very expensive endeavors. The next census, I think, is planned for late this year, for instance, and I would encourage you to have a look out for that. The starting point of any discussion about South Africa is really to have a look at, what the total population of South Africa is. Now, mid-year last year, that's the 1st of July 2020, the South African population was estimated at about 59.6 million people. Now, this population was not evenly distributed across South Africa. As you will see in the graph in front of you, about a quarter, 26% of that population lived in Gauteng, which is the most populous province in South Africa. Also, incidentally, the smallest province, but also economically, at least, the strongest province. The smallest percentage, only 2.2%, was from Northern Cape, which is inversely the largest geographical province, but also, as you can see, the least populous province. Mpumalanga contained about 4.7 million people, which makes it about 7.8% of the total population. I think it's important also to note, and this is something that most of you know, that Mpumalanga is, of course, much integrated with Gauteng and all the provinces around it. Now, dealing with specifically the three district municipalities within Mpumalanga, we'll see that the three districts, particularly Ihlanzeni and Kangala, are very similar sizes, at least in terms of proportion of the total population. Ihlanzeni makes up about 39% of the total population, followed by Kangala, and then followed by Garsibande as the smallest percentage of only 26.5%. This indicator provides us with the percentage of females in any given population. As you can see here, about 50.7%, about 51% of the total population of Mpumalanga were female. Now, normally you would expect any given population to be slightly more females than males. And that's demographically something that we observe right across the world. We know that there's quite high migration from Mpumalanga to Gauteng and to other provinces for work, particularly Gauteng. So this percentage is probably be a bit higher if it wasn't for all the male out migrants from Mpumalanga. Now, if we have a look at the individual districts and their sex relationships, we find that the highest ratio is actually in Ihlanzeni at 52.45% of the total population are female, and the lowest one is in Kangala. And of course, given the fact that it's about 49% to 51%, this just establishes what I've mentioned earlier, that is much higher outmigration from Kangala into neighboring districts, and particularly Gauteng, than in other two districts. That's also higher dependency on remittances, for instance, for a population that stays behind. One of the last measures that we use to look at the population of a particular district or a particular geographical area is the age distributions. Now, as you can see, generally, if you look at the third bottom bars, we see that in South Africa as a whole, about 28.6% of the total population are children below the ages of 15. And at about 62% of the total population are comprised of youths and adults, that's 15 years and older. Now, if you compare that with Mpumalanga, I think the first thing one notices is that the percentage of children in Mpumalanga are significantly higher. It is 36.1%, compared to the 28% for South Africa. And inversely, also, one finds that your youth and adult share is slightly smaller than that for South Africa. Again, supporting the observation that there's a lot of outmigration, perhaps from Mpumalanga to other other districts, but also that there's a lot of families raising children. And maybe grandmothers raising children, for instance, of parents that live in other areas. And this we can see in one of the next slides, where we look at what percentage of children actually live with their parents or mother or fathers individually. As you can see again, looking at South Africa, and South Africa is incidentally just below Mpumalanga. We can see in South Africa about 42% of all children lived with only the mother, and that 32.7% lived with only the father, and about a fifth, 21%, lived with both parents. However, if you look at Mpumalanga, you see that about 47%, 46.5% lived with only the mother, whilst about 25% lived with both, which is significantly smaller than what you find in South Africa as a whole. And then about 22.5% lived with neither the mother or father. So that means they lived with extended family, with friends, and with other relatives, perhaps. Now, given this thesis that people often live with non-family members, and also that such a large percentage live with their parents, with their mothers in particular, I think it's important to know how does these female-headed households cope. Now, this slide in front of you shows the percentage of male and female-headed households that doesn't contain a single employed member. Now, as you can see in Mpumalanga here, whereas about 20%, 21% of all male-headed households didn't contain a single employed member. In other words, there was nobody employed in that household. This figure is about 42%, 42.3% to be exact, for female-headed households. So female-headed households are much, much more likely, almost twice more likely on face value, to not have a single employed member as part of that household. And that, of course, means that those households are normally dependent on things like grants and remittances and various other sources of income, which makes them much more vulnerable, of course, to poverty and to hunger and various other things. There are two ways to measure poverty. Is to use what we call a money metric approach. This is really to look at what income people get, whether it be salaries or grants or remittances. And the other one is to have a look at a much more broader, multidimensional poverty. That means we're not looking only at money, but we're looking at the opportunities and so forth that people got access to the services. Now, using money metric approach, we can see that about 42% of the Mpumalanga population was considered poor based on the lower bound poverty line. Now, this lower bound poverty line, you can see in front of you, is calculated about 840 rands per person per month, which is mostly only enough to pay for food and very important non-food items. So basically, people really have to choose between buying food and buying other necessities like electricity, perhaps, or transport, or clothing, or other things. There are, of course, other poverty lines as well, the food poverty line, which is lower, and the upper poverty line. But I think the lower bound poverty line that we've used is the one that's generally quoted also by Statistics South Africa. Now, comparing this to South Africa, you'd see that the population of Mpumalanga is considered slightly more poor, or a higher percentage of the Mpumalanga population is considered poor than the South African population. Whereas 40% of the South African population, using the lower bound poverty line, were considered poor. This is about 42.6% for the Mpumalanga poverty or population. And this is, kind of in line. Now, going to the second dimension that we spoke about is we look at a range of different services that people might have. One of the things is we look at health, in this case, life expectancy. We look at education, access to schooling and school attendance. And also we're looking at living standards. In other words, access to electricity for lighting, heating, cooking, whether people have access to piped water, whether they've got access to adequate sanitation, what type of dwellings they live with, whether they've got certain assets, but also economic activity. The latter one is actually one of the most important ones. In other words, whether people are employed and what percentage are unemployed. Now, looking at the sample here, this really mirrors what we found in the earlier when we looked at the money metric poverty lines. We can see that Mpumalanga is slightly worse off than South Africa in all 3 years, 2001, 2011, and 2016, although there has been a decline in both the South African as well as the Mpumalanga poverty line from 2001 to 2016. The situation in Mpumalanga is and remains slightly worse off than South Africa as a whole. Breaking it down into the 3 districts, one can see that Nkangala has the highest indicator value here at 8.2%, and Garsibande has got the lowest one, about 7.2%. These are incidentally all still much higher than, or significantly higher than that for South Africa as a whole. This just shows you how important unemployment is as a part of this index, and it just gives you the relative values of the other drivers. I think a very important slide also shows us where households then do get their money from. We've established that a large percentage of households, particularly female-headed households, don't necessarily have employed household members, and we've established also that poverty is quite severe in many of these sections. So that begs the question, where does money come from? And one of the questions that was asked since 2002 in the General Household Survey asks households to indicate the main source of income. As you can see in Mpumalanga, about 51% of households indicated that salaries was their main source of income. Now, that's, of course, if you have a look, for instance, at Western Cape or Gauteng, that's significantly lower than what you will find in those 2 economic hubs of South Africa. The interesting thing, I think, to note, though, when you look at Mpumalanga is that about 58% of households indicated that either remittances or social grants was one of their main sources of income. Now, that is extremely noticeable because that means that a very, very large percentage of these households are dependent on either the state or on members of the household who have migrated elsewhere in South Africa to work or elsewhere in the province to work for the income. And that again renders them quite vulnerable to a large extent. One can also see that about 10% of these households said that they've got other sources of income, and this includes business income, farming activities, selling things, etc. So that's more kind of entrepreneurial and self-generated income. A very important measure that we have to look at is, of course, service delivery. What kind of services do people have? Now, since the GHS has started in 2012, it's been clear that most households, or the percentage of households in Mpumalanga who had access to mains electricity actually exceeded the average for South Africa. Now, it would have been a shame, of course, if it wasn't the case, since so many of our power generation at least takes place in Mpumalanga. And as you can see, by 2019, which is the last data point we've got, about 90.1% of households in Mpumalanga actually had access to electricity compared to an average of about 85%. If we, sorry for that. If we look at access to water, one sees unfortunately the inverse. Sorry, this is the improved sanitation. I just had it over the slide heading. If you look at access to improved sanitation means access to flush toilets or to pit toilets or ventilation pipes. One see the inverse from what we see with electricity. We see that Mpumalanga has actually been lagging South Africa since 2002. Although there's been an increase, the increase has not necessarily been as quick or as fast as that for South Africa as a whole. And as of 2019, only about 63.7% of households actually had access to improved sanitation, compared to about 82% for South Africa as a whole. Now, breaking this down again into the various districts, one see that water is rather universal, except for Egalandeni, which is only 83.8%. The other two provinces were both, or the other two districts rather, both had access to pipe water in excess of 90%. Electricity was also quite high for across all three of these districts. And then sanitation, this is of course now access to flush or chemical toilets was lowest in Egalandeni. Only 28.7% of households had access. And even in Kangala, we see that only 55.5% of households had access to that. Even Garsibande, I think we must mention, although it's 70%, that's still significantly lower than the South African average. Now, this slide shows us percentage of households that were involved in 2019, showed that they were involved in any kind of agriculture. Now, we can see here that in Mpumalanga, about 18.2%, that's just under 1/5 of all households indicated that they were involved in any kind of agriculture. And that's higher than the South African average of 13.8%. But I think we need to just put out a warning here that this actually, the question itself should be understood to mean involved in agriculture at any given scale. In other words, it could be keeping a few cattle, maybe having a small vegetable garden in the back, maybe a few fruit trees. It doesn't necessarily mean being involved in any kind of structured small-scale agriculture, although that, of course, takes place. So this, again, I think is one of the things, that one of the lessons we need to take from this is that there's a lot of scope for development in agricultural engagement in these communities. Now, another important point when we have a look at hunger is to see that in Mpumalanga, female-headed households were much more likely to suffer from hunger than male-headed households. If you have a look at a slide and you look at, it's almost in the middle, it's just next to South Africa, you'll see that 14.4% of female-headed households reported that they suffered from hunger, compared to only about 11.6% of male-headed households. This trend has been consistent over time, and it is noticeable that it's also true for all other provinces. Difference might not be as big as, for instance, in the Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, but it's still notable. Now, when we talk about Egalandeni, we saw that according to the community survey of 2016, and that's the last time we unfortunately had data available at such a low level, we saw that 22.7% of female-headed households in Egalandeni indicated that they were likely to run out of money for food. Now, firstly, you can see that it's much higher, for instance, than the male-headed households, which is 20.1%. But it was still lower, for instance, than in Kangala or in Garsibande. In actual fact, it's also lower than the average for Mpumalanga. I think the takeaway from this particular slide would be, once again, that female-headed households are more vulnerable and more likely to run out of money to buy food, for instance. This is particularly important since we've seen in earlier slides that female-headed households are also more likely to actually look after children in communities. Now, another thing that is very important to look at is, of those households that do have workers, we find that workers are not always paid exactly the same. If we look at a QLFS, we find that according to the QLFS of 2018, we find that females were, nationally at least, only paid about 76% of what their male counterparts would have been paid. This has improved slightly from 71% in 2013, but it still remains a shame that they'll only be paid 3/4 of their male counterparts. If you break it up according to district or to the various provinces, one sees that the situation varies across provinces. It is always lower, but in Mpumalanga we see it's only about 75%, as we said, and the highest you'll find is Western Cape, about 86.9%. And in Limpopo, the situation is even significantly worse, where females are only paid 2/3 of their male counterparts. The last two slides deals with experience of violence. And really what we want to show here is that nationally, about 21% of partnered women have ever experienced physical violence by a partner. ever, and about 8% have experienced it in the last 12 months. Sexual violence, we found that about 6% have ever experienced it, compared to 2% has experienced it in the last 12 months. I think it's very important to notice again, and I always flag this, these are probably underestimates given the difficulty of getting accurate information from partners in household surveys, because this is a very, very intimate set of questions to ask and answer. Now, when we look at the various provinces, remember the previous slides dealt particularly with at the national level, we see that in Mpumalanga, about 26.4% of women ever experienced physical violence, and about 7% ever experienced any kind of sexual violence. Now, this places it at the high end, above the average for South Africa as a whole, and definitely quite unacceptable. And with that, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neil. We are continuing with our presentations, and we will now allow Commissioner Ntuli from the Commission of Gender Equality to continue with her presentation. Commissioner Ntuli.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sylvia, for the opportunity to speak. Let me check, am I audible enough?
You are so audible.
Thank you very much. And also, on behalf of the Commission for Gender Equality, we appreciate the opportunity to speak at this platform and at this level. Let me also acknowledge the other honorable member from Parliament, the Speaker of the Provincial Legislature of Mpumalanga, the administrators from the Commission for Gender Equality, some of them are here, and also some commissioners, and all protocol observed. Let me just quickly give you an overview of who we are. Our constitutional mandate as the Commission for Gender Equality is to protect, respect for gender equality, the protection, development, and attainment of gender equality. Part of our work involves, which are our additional powers, of course, and functions, as prescribed by the national legislation, is to monitor, to investigate, to research, to lobby, to advise Parliament and report issues concerning gender equality. We monitor compliance, also including around international commitments. They can be at SADC level or across SADC level. That is us. Then our vision is that of a society free from all forms of gender oppression and inequalities. To the topic that we are given today, which is around gender transformation, we take our work and a mandate from the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, which is committed on achieving gender equality as guided by a vision of human rights, which incorporates acceptance of equal and inalienable rights of all men and women. So the issue of equality, addressing the imbalances of the past, to name a few, it's part of our responsibility. And we also move from an understanding that in dealing with issues of equality, both men and women need to benefit equally on both the strategic opportunities and the practical opportunities. Strategic is issues of economic empowerment, issues of advancement of women into senior management positions and so on. Practical needs puts in together issues of water, sanitation, all those things that we need to survive. When we talk about gender transformation, it's important also for us to understand where we come from, like by explaining exactly something that we call gender-related challenges, which emanates from gender relations, poverty, access to basic needs, access to employment. Those are the challenges that the whole country has to deal with: globalization, implementation of laws, and gender-based violence. So Mpumalanga in general Ehlanzeni in particular is really not exempted from this type of challenges. As we move with the presentation, we also need to explain things or engagements that we had with Mpumalanga in general and Ehlanzeni in particular on issues of gender transformation. We did robust engagement with Ehlanzeni on putting them on board on issues of gender mainstreaming, because we believe that it is a strategic tool for ensuring that the required destination, which is gender equality, is achieved at the end of the day. Then we worked also with SALGA and the Office of the Premier in running these programs as part of our robust engagement on gender transformation. We also understand that around Ehlanzeni region, we have parastatals, we have private sector. We worked with them. Come again, can I proceed? I hear disruption.
Please proceed.
Yes, thank you. As I was stating that the Commission for Gender Equality has conducted numerous gender mainstreaming initiatives as part of ascertaining gender transformation. We worked with SALGA, we worked with the Office of the Premier in dealing with these programs. And we also work on structures like the Kruger National Park, where we saw the need that we need to have robust engagement on that matter. TSB is one of the structures or entities that we have worked with. We also established what we call from the House of Traditional Leaders. We have Amakhosigazi, who are the wives to the kings and the chiefs in the province. We made sure that we link them with government where they are currently getting support from government, and there are existing programs that are taking place as part of empowering Amakhosigadi. We had investigative hearings as the Commission for Gender Equality in this district, whereby Halls and Sons, the TVET colleges, found themselves appearing in front of the Commission for Gender Equality on issues of gender transformation. Also, I need to mention that part of the things that we embarked on as the Commission for Gender Equality, there were also employment equity investigative hearings that were targeting municipalities, because the concern we had at the time was that we were not seeing the municipalities adhering to employment equity target, the target that we usually talk about of 50-50 and so on the side of employment equity, where they had to appear in front of the commission. We had also investigative reports on the issues of shelters in the province. We understand that women that are exposed to gender-based violence, at times they find themselves being housed with the children at the shelters. The challenge here was the state of the shelters. It was not conducive for women and children. It was more like they are moving from a primary abusive state to experience some form of secondary abuse due to the state and the nature of the shelters that were taking place. We had a number of investigative hearings where Vodacom had to appear before the commission, Woolworth, Toyota, and Pick n Pay, just to name a few. And moving forward, as the Commission for Gender Equality, we have appeared in the magistrate courts in the district of Ehlanzeni, where we were supporting women or families where their children had been victims to femicide or any gender-related case, where as the Commission for Gender Equality, we take the role of amicus curiae, meaning we become friends of the court to make sure that justice is received where it is due. Other work that we did in this region as the Commission for Gender Equality is around customary marriage and widowhood. And it's important for us to bring it to the audience here that in our work as the Commission for Gender Equality, in the engagements, especially that we had with widows, we realized that they feel not well accommodated as far as the income tax is concerned. There is a situation whereby they are at a level of lower level or lower bracket of taxation. But after they receive what is due to them from a spouse, that has passed on, and that puts them a level up or more level ups as far as the tax is concerned. Instead of them being economically empowered to have resources to raise their families, they find themselves owing SARS a lot of money. But in this engagement, what we did, we involved SARS where there was robust and ongoing work in that particular area. We do a lot of advocacy work, a lot of outreach programs. We do also legal clinics where we go down to the grassroots communities, the rural areas, with a commitment to empower them on gender equality and human rights related matters. We foster public understanding also on matters pertaining to legislation, because we believe that information is power. If people in our rural areas and at grassroots level, they are empowered on legislations, on their rights, they can use that positively to ascertain the gender transformation. We are committed in empowering communities so that as they engage and participate at all levels, it can be in the community or at the workplace, they can always participate from an informed position. So in these legal clinics that we coordinate as the Commission for Gender Equality, we make sure that we work closely with civil societies of Ehlanzeni region to make sure that there is that contact, because we have both beneficiaries and stakeholders at Ehlanzeni region. As I close, Honorable Member, I would like to mention that in our work, as we work towards the attainment of gender equality, we, in addition to gender mainstreaming, which is a strategic tool, we must also remember to have what we call a gender barometer. It is available online. It assists a lot on the assessment of issues of equality. The Commission for Gender Equality, we do have this as a strategic tool. And also another thing that we feel it's effective, it can assist the districts in the attainment of gender equality, is the existence of the Gender Inequality Index. This is one of the strategic tools where you use it to measure gender disparity. And it's also important to know that this measurement tool, it shows how far or it shows how close an organization or a local or district municipality is moving towards achieving gender equality and towards equality within the society. As the Commission for Gender Equality, we have our toll-free number, which is 0800 007709. We have our Twitter handle, and we are also available on Facebook to report any gender-related case. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Ntuli. We will still continue with our presentations, and we will now give over to the Finance and Fiscal Commission. It is represented by the Commissioner Elizabeth Rockman as well as Namonde. So we will give over to Commissioner Rockman to introduce the presentation of the Finance and Fiscal Commission.
Thank you, Honorable Lucas. I apologize, my video is still giving us problems, so I'm unable to switch that on. But good afternoon to all the participants, also our honourable members of the Mpumalanga legislature. The Financial and Fiscal Commission's focus is primarily on the equitable division of nationally collected revenue amongst the three spheres of government and any other financial and fiscal matters relating to legislative provisions or executive decisions that affect either the provincial or local government from a financial and or fiscal perspective. And it also includes regulations associated with legislation that may amend or extend such legislation. The district development model consists of a process by which joint and collaborative planning is undertaken at local, district and metropolitans or metro municipalities by all three spheres of governance. And it builds further on the white paper on local government and takes us forward in our endeavors to achieve developmental local government. And our understanding of developmental local government is, of course, that local government works with citizens, local groups in communities, other stakeholders to find sustainable ways to meet their social, economic, and material needs and to improve the quality of their lives. Now, the district development model is a practical intergovernmental relations mechanism to enable these three spheres of government to work together, to plan, to budget, and to implement in unison. The IGR mechanism must of necessity reflect a fiscal mechanism as well, together with systems and processes. To this end, we need to reflect and determine to what extent our budgeting instruments and processes have been adapted to reflect the district development model. And it appears largely to still be a work in progress at all our government levels. At local government level, our IDP and budgeting processes go hand in hand. The one simply cannot exist without the other. These processes should not only be outwardly reflective, but also find expression from an internal institutional perspective. The FFC has previously conducted research which reflect on the gender perspectives as reflected in IDPs and budgets at local level. And our presentation today reflects some of the key findings of that research. It appears that we had, for quite a substantial period of time, largely lost the momentum of a more holistic and comprehensive gender-based budgeting approach that was characteristic of the early years of our democratic transition. The gender-based budgeting approach and planning is an approach that aims to mainstream gender in economic policy making and seeks to transform the entire budget process. Our gender-based budget focus in recent years seems to have been geared towards standalone high-profile priorities, such as the tax treatment of sanitary products and gender-based violence. And whilst these are critically important, they need to be contextualized and find expression within a comprehensive gender-based budget approach. The work that is being done by the Women's Multi-Party Caucus with regard to gender-responsive budgeting and planning cannot be overemphasized. In March 2020, the Women's Multi-Party Caucus reflected on the shortcomings in institutionalizing gender-based budgeting, particularly the draft GRB framework, including the limitations of the current draft framework on gender-responsive planning and budgeting as a policy framework that strengthens institutional capacity at national, provincial, and local level for aligning service delivery with the imperatives of promoting gender equity. The lack of expertise in the state to take up gender-responsive planning and budgeting, the difficulty in accessing disaggregated data to take up gender-responsive planning and budgeting, as well as the lack of a framework for incorporating gender as an analytical variable into government's monitoring and evaluation processes. Of course, one of our key challenges remain to move beyond theory to practical implementation. Gender budgeting must be aligned to national development goals on gender equality and women's development. It must translate these goals into fiscal policies and programs. Now, amongst our gender budget goals, these could include equalizing females' access to education, improving maternal and child-related health, reduce the unpaid time demands on women and girls through improved infrastructure, addressing women's level of economic opportunity and participation. The voice, the gender perspective on our budgets and planning initiatives must find expression in our democratic institutions of governance, and the voice of Parliament, the NCOP, legislatures and councils will undoubtedly assist in taking this narrative forward. The FFC is currently conducting research in this regard, and it will form part of our next submission on the annual division of revenue. The realities of Black African female-headed households being the poorest of the poor, unemployment rates being historically higher for women than men, and gender inequality reflected in wage gaps must find direct reflection not only in the annual vertical division of revenue between the three spheres of government, but also within the horizontal budget allocations within national, provincial, and local government. Ms. Nomondi Madubula will take us through the rest of the presentation. Thank you, Chair. Nomondi?
Thank you, Commission. Nomonde, over to you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. Afternoon to all the honorable members. I will just go on to the next slide to add on to what Commissioner Rockman has said. Also, FFC is of the view, as Commissioner Rockman has said, that one avenue that should receive greater emphasis to gender budgeting is the IGFR system, as FFC is of the view that innovation in policy design and implementation are required so as to ensure there are gender-sensitive resource allocation to this matter. FFC also conducted a study which the objective was to assess the gender responsiveness of municipal budgeting processes. In this study, the FFC followed two approaches. It reviewed IDPs of the municipalities. There were 30 of them. As we know that the IDPs are a planning document and an implementation document for municipalities, so as to find out how far are they in the process of gender budgeting or gender mainstreaming. Also, there were some case studies that were done to this effect. Of particular concern to the reviewers that was done, there were 4 sectors that were looked at, which is the local economic development, the sector focusing on water and sanitation, early childhood development, and the housing infrastructure. We know that these 4 variables, they do alleviate the plight on women, so as to see their quality of life if it's improving. In terms of the findings on the IDP, what was found is general in the municipalities that were reviewed was that there was lack of gender mainstreaming and women empowerment as an approach at the municipal level. The data is not disaggregated by male or female. If it's disaggregated, it's just used to show population numbers or to show how many people are employed or not employed, but it doesn't feature in terms of being used as a tool to do the planning when it comes to gender budgeting issues. Also, what we found in the study that there was it was sort of like equity versus equality approach, where it's more about numbers that in this municipality we have hired so many number of women. While that is important in terms of equality, in terms of equal opportunities and conditions, that was lacking in most of the municipalities that were reviewed. There was also weak translation of gender equality commitments into fiscal commitments. What do we mean by this? The IDPs showed little evidence of the manner in which the IDP planning processes and budget offices have budgeted for gender budgeting or gender mainstreaming programs. In terms of the case studies, the findings were of similar approach. There was poor translation of the national agenda on women empowerment and gender equality into local government programs. As I've indicated before, The data is limited. If it's available, it's just for population purposes, nothing else. Also, some of the gender programs that takes into effect are event driven. When there's Women's Day, then you will see something happening on that month. And then that after that month, nothing else happens. There was also lack of gender budgeting training and capacity building of decision makers, as well as poor institutionalization of gender responsive budgeting. Also, the absence of analysis of the gender impact of existing revenues and expenditures. What do we mean by this? Like we find out that if there are revenues, what if there are revenues in terms of taxes, who is carrying the burden? If there is expenditure, the impact of that, can it be ascertained that it benefits women or it benefits gender differently? Like, for example, in terms of education or health, that information was lacking. Also, some of the reasons as well for limited gender mainstreaming and budgeting at the local government was that there's absence of an approved gender policy across all the municipalities. There's absence of a municipal gender mainstreaming strategy so that all these plans can be implemented. Those who make decisions have limited knowledge of how to go about conducting the gender institutionalization and mainstreaming in their municipalities or departments. Gender equality indicators and the collection of gender data information is limited, as I've indicated earlier. In terms of the recommendation, the FFC recommended that the national and provincial governments should run gender budgeting pilots in a few municipalities first and evaluate the results before the application can be conducted. The FFC is of the view that these pilots could be linked to ensuring gender disaggregated data, for example, for key conditional grants as per the Division of Revenue Act. If perhaps we can take example of the ECT grants or as well as the other grants that are in the, like the water and sanitation grants in the grant framework, if some of these grants can be taken and be looked at to see what will be the results, what will be the impact. FFC is of the view that things can improve. The national and provincial government should ensure municipal integrated development plans, institutionalize gender planning by sector, like in the sectors or programs that I've highlighted earlier, like the water and sanitation, the LED programs, and include gender disaggregated performance indicators and targets, and provide gender budgeting good practice guides and toolkits on how should this information be distributed. The FFC also recommended that the national and provincial government should provide guidelines for collecting the gender disaggregated data for budgeting processes and ensure that municipalities have the capacity to analyze these budgets. In terms of the response, government supported the proposal as it was of the view that it will help ensure that the collection and the allocation of public resources is effectively carried out and will contribute to advancing gender equality and women's empowerment. Also, government was of the view that it will provide tools to assess the different needs and contribution of all the genders within the existing revenues, expenditure and allocation, and will call for adjusted budget policies so that all the groups benefit. At the local level, the FFC recommended that the local government should as well institutionalize gender responsive budgeting process linked to their IDPs. The need to build capacity for gender mainstreaming and gender responsive budgeting at local level, as well as appropriation and budget allocation, and ensure that there is public participation and consultation at the local level when it comes to government also responded that gender responsive budget analysis along with legislation can indeed address the gender bias and discrimination in the country, as it is a step towards increased accountability and public transparency. and it can shift economic policies leading to gains across society. However, the proposal implementation may be hindered by the capacity constraints at the municipal level. That is the last slide, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Namonde. I hope you will give attention to that, to your throat. Seems as if there is something wrong with your voice. So, thank you very much. That was now the input by our stakeholders and our partners. We are going to continue with session 2, but before we go to session 2, I've observed that there are quite a few members of Parliament, that is now the National Assembly as well as the NCOP, that have logged on to this to this platform, and others will indicate themselves. But is Honorable Dikeledi Mpumalanga, and then we also have from Northwest, Teboho Modise and Honorable Jane Manganye, and Mama Rahane from Limpopo and Honorable Ndongeni from the Eastern Cape. Is there any other members that I haven't mentioned, just to give
Chair.
do you hear me? You hear me?
Yes, Deputy Chair, go ahead.
I don't know what is happening, but it seems as if there is something.
You are audible now, ma'am, but your video is off.
Oh, there was a problem, really, that I don't know what it is, but let us continue.
Hello.
Just a moment. I think there's a problem with the Deputy Chair's.
Hello.
Honorable Mpumalanga. Honorable Mpumalanga. Honorable Malika. The Deputy Chair is requesting you to please continue with the meeting. There is a problem with her connection. It's unstable at the moment.
What's wrong?
Speaker Shiba. Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Mama.
Could you kindly proceed with the meeting? The next item is it's the item from the municipality, from the MMC.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Let me check my agenda here on my.
Sorry, I got in from another gadget.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I don't know what happened on this one, but I got in from another gadget. And can we request Teboho Modise to continue with the program? It's just the one district. Honorable Modise, Teboho. I don't know where Honorable Mahlangu at the moment. Can you
Deputy
please,
Chair?
do you have the program in front of you, Honorable Modise?
No, Deputy Chair. And
There
good
is
afternoon.
good afternoon. There is one person that must make an input. It is the MMC of Ehlanzeni District Municipality. If you can just call that person to continue with the meeting, and then chair for me.
No, thank you very much, Deputy Chair, and good afternoon, honorable members that are joining our meeting today and everybody who's in the meeting. I'm not going to call one by one, and the commissioner, all the participants, you are welcome to, good afternoon. I'm going to
Can you
call
open
the
your video,
speaker.
Honorable Modise? Can you open your video and call Honorable Mashiho Sekobelo, Honorable Councillor Sekobelo?
Okay, I'll do that, Deputy Chair. Let me do it. It seems.
It's fine.
Chair?
Let you think call
Okay.
Honorable Sekobelo and continue on that.
Okay. Honorable Councillor MMC, can you continue with your presentation while I'm still doing my video? MMC or any presenter?
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm in. I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am. You can
Hello?
continue. Yes. You are
Hello?
audible, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'm in. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. No, thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you very much, Chairperson, for giving me this opportunity, and greetings to yourself.
Honorables, we cannot hear anything.
The Speaker of
I don't know.
Mpumalanga, who also happens to be the chairperson of the ANC Women's League in the province. I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you,
Hello?
ma'am.
Audible.
Yes.
Someone is
Can you continue, ma'am, with your presentation?
Okay. No, I was saying greetings to yourself. Yes, I'm continuing. Greetings to your good self, the chairperson, the Speaker of the legislature, who happened to be the chairperson of the Women's League in the province. Greetings to the ANC Secretary of the Women's League in the province. And also greetings to all members of the parliament and the NCOP. I saw Mam Violet Suela and also Mam Dikeledi from Mpumalanga. Then greetings to all the participants. Okay, I will start by the introduction in my presentation. Thank you very much. The Women's Charter was adopted in 1954, and it played a significant role in setting the tone for today's dramatic order. The Charter was reviewed in 1994 under the Women's National Coalition, which adopted the Women's Charter for effective equality. Both the 1954 and 1994 charters call for society where women are free from discrimination and prejudice. They called for the society which respects women and enforces the right of the interim human dignity. South Africa is lauded for having some of the most progressive law and policies intended to advance women's rights and gender equality. But women are represented among the poor, the unemployed, and the hungry. Alarmingly high rates of gender-based violence may have been women in South Africa more dangerous than being in some of the war-torn areas. Although gender non-conforming people can marry in South Africa, they still face relentless prejudice and exclusive from mainstreaming society, some of which manifest extreme violence. Some of the most pervasive challenges facing women in South Africa can be summarized as follows. Black women continue to be the face of the poverty and the people who shoulder the social burden emanating from high levels of poverty and inequality in the country. The sustained oppression and marginalized of rural women, worsened by the context of resurging rehabilitation of South Africa. Women living under the dual legal system, wherein customary practices often take precedence. Women are exploited labor force, marginalized from the formal economy, paid less than males for same work and performing minimal paid or wholly unpaid some in a social labor. The gender-based violence is endemic in domestic environments, society at large, and even in schools. This is fueled by, among other things, sexism, patriarchal norms, attitudes, and cultural impunity. Access to essential services such as health, water, and electricity means that women of this time filling the gap. Women of Eshanzeni suffer from unemployment, low income poverty, gender-based violence, HIV, TB, mental health, and social challenges. The purpose of this presentation today is to provide an outline of socio-economic challenges faced by Eshanzeni women, to look at the opportunities that can be maximized to effect transformation and opportunities among women of Eshanzeni, and to appraise the meeting on previously implemented programs in attempt to empower women. The socio-economic challenges faced by women. As I was articulating in the intro, it was poverty and equality, rural women and access to service delivery, women and service delivery, women and HIV, women and gender-based violence, women and economic empowerment, women and parenthood, and women and health, also women and education. The objective of women structures: to establish and maintain effective communication with women in the communities and in organizations. Also to mobilize group of women and organizations, to assist on the implementation and evaluation of government policies that relate to the needs of women. Make recommendations to council actions and projects that will promote the integration of women in development. Also, all our four local municipalities and EDM have launched the Women Council structures. The EDM launched a multi-party women's caucus in 2019. EDM Disability Forum, comprising of a few women in the executive. EDM Social Cluster, where women are represented, and as well as District 8 Council, the women are represented there. Women Council structures comprising of women from the communities representing different organizations dealing with women issues. The multi-party women caucus comprising of women from different political parties. The EDM and its local municipalities launch at the same point, but its functionality of these structures remains a challenge. Meeting happens at a short notice, therefore, it conducts an audit. The policy implementation for women issues. In 2009, Ehlanzeni District Municipality developed a gender strategy which addressed both women and men's gender issues. The purpose of this strategy is to provide a framework to guide the development of gender-responsive programs, projects, policies, and procedures within the Ehlanzeni municipality towards transforming the status of women and bringing about gender equality. The key outcome of strategy is to mainstream of gender in the broadening agenda of the municipality. In all local municipalities, as Ehlanzeni, we have assisted with developing their own strategy in 2012. EDM strategy and that of the local municipality are due for the reviewal to be aligned to National Strategy Plan on GBV. EDM gender strategy has been implemented, addressing a lot of issues affecting women. The priorities for the gender strategy, which are governance, economic growth, development, infrastructure, social service, and cross-cutting issues, institutional information, and gender management system. On governance, we are saying to promote a gender equitable governance system that will enable effective service delivery in the development stage. On economic growth and development, we are saying to enhance gender mainstreaming and women empowerment in all poverty alleviation and LED programs. Also on infrastructure provision, we are saying to increase compliance on equal access of infrastructure and services. On social services, we are saying to provide gender responsive and gender equitable social services within the municipality. Then on the institutional commission is to facilitate and coordinate internal gender mainstreaming within the municipalities. Then on the gender mainstreaming, to improve gender mainstreaming in the Ehlanzeni and also the institution. Then our program of EDM, women are part of the EDM plan through the IDP consultative process, available structures. A budget is allocated for women programs such as economic empowerment with a focus on skills development and awarding of business opportunities. The economic empowerment programs ranging from the SMN distribution of gardening tools and seedlings to the small, the awareness of programs focusing on the women's health issues, and also coordinated awareness campaigns, matches, and dialogues on GBVF, coordinated capacity building workshop on gender issues, created strategic partners which will be issues and other issues of women. As Ehlanzeni, we have partnered with Paper Africa, then also to mobilize the involvement of the private sector within the district on the women issues, and also to develop a concept node to use ICT in GBVF with a specific focus to reporting and achieving of evidence that will be permissible to court. In interventions, we're saying to continue with the mobilize NGOs, community-based organizers of the planning process, and provide support in addressing the needs of our poor women, and encourage and mobilize women to participate in planning discussions during community meetings, to intervention mechanism for women in mainstream, to develop endangered policies that benefit and empower women socio-economically. And also the review gender strategy to be to the national strategy plan focusing on the six priority of coordination and leadership. Then the second pillar is prevention and rebuilding social cohesion. The third pillar is protection, safety, and justice. And the fourth pillar is response, care, support, and healing. The fifth pillar is economic power. Then the last pillar is the research and information system. To raise awareness of the harmful dangers of GBV, to violence against girls in schools are harassed and abused to school, with girls being most vulnerable. To listen to the victim of GBV on their proposed solution, to reach out to marginalized and rural, to promote intergenerational dialogue on violence against children, and to community dialogues that challenge attitudes toward punishment, the dominance of perpetuate GBV, challenge social norms, condone GBVF practice within our space, strengthen and promote violent, respectful, positive, and gender equality and relationship. In my closing remarks, Chair, we welcome the move to review our Women's Charter since we know that it signifies equality, economic empowerment for women, right to education and training, and etc. As EDM, we appreciate the opportunity to be part of such historical significant. I'd like to take this opportunity and thank you very much, Chair. This is our presentation as Ehlanzeni District. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, MMC. Deputy Chair, what is the next item?
You continue with the
Hello.
discussions.
Hello, leadership. Amanda.
Yes,
Thank you very much. And done, Chair.
Amanda.
Honorable Modise, you can continue with the discussions, take the inputs from the members. I will then.
Okay.
Leadership.
No, thank you very much. Hello.
Leadership.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Chairperson. Norman Denkosi is speaking here from Carolina in an organization called Umandla. Ngithanda ukubonga le opportunity. But Chair, I have a question. Ukuthi, everyone that is going to present here today, aren't we going maybe to ask questions, or Tina as civil society or as people who are working at the ground, we are here to listen only? Or
We are on the discussion now. You are. This is the we are giving you an opportunity to ask question or to make any input.
Thank you, leadership. I will follow. Then I will give others a chance for now.
Okay. Okay. I've seen a hand of Matapelo and Menomonde and Bonjekile and Leah.
Can I also be recognized, please? Dr. Tembekwa, I can't raise a hand here on the system.
Oh, yes. You are welcome, Dr. Susan.
Okay.
And then Sophie. Yeah, let's start. Let's give our input or question to all the presenters, or if you have any input that you wanted to add, you can. You are welcome to do that. Yes, Matapelo?
Thank you, Honorable Modise. My question is on the gender strategy program. Can we have stats on how many women have been assisted by this program in Mpumalanga? And does your program also assist LGBTQI communities? how many women with disability have been assisted, how many young women have been assisted. Does the program address in capacitating young girls, especially at high school and higher education institutions? Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Honorable Modise, is there a problem? Can we then have Sophie? Sophie.
Thank you, Chairperson. Am I audible?
Yes, you
Can
are.
you hear me? Okay,
Yes,
thank you
we
very
hear
much.
you.
Yeah, greetings to the protocol. My first question is, I just want to be clarified that this women charter is for Mpumalanga, mentioning the 3 districts in Tanzania, Nkangala, and Hart, or is for Tanzania only now? The second one is that I want to be clarified about the statistics of women who are being killed or women in violence, and how many are being assisted. And you are talking about the district model. Then can we be assisted with how many numbers are women participating, especially on the planning of budget for the municipalities? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sophie. Can we then have Leah? Leah.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Honorable Sylvia?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me greet. Thank you. Let me greet yourself, Program Director, as well as the leadership and honorable members that are here, as well as welcoming the presentation made by the comrades, and which we appreciate this. My view is that it's good that we are reviewing this chart, but the charter must also be able to be elevated properly in the systems of government. I want to suggest, Honorable Sylvia, that now that we realize in the country in general that challenges of women are enormous, that have also increased by the fact that on daily basis there is now a second pandemic that we called GPV. Is it going to be proper for us to be able to advance women emancipation and fighting patriarchy while the ministry on its own is still under precedence? In the departments, provincial, issues of women are sectored in a small department, even if that department is big, but as in a section in a department. Like in Mpumalanga, social development, the women's unit is led by an ordinary, if not a senior admin officer. Are we going to be able to elevate issues of women properly in provinces as well as national, while we're still taking ourselves as a small unit and a small ministry in the government that is leading currently? That is my comment and lobby that as we review this chart, we must also elevate the fact that we need to be at a certain level where we are taking women issues and women emancipation and development into a high level, where we would want to see not only having reports that says we're still below, we're still not meeting, because the level in which we're placed by government, it looks like we are a sub-unit of the entire system. So the charter should be elevated in a manner that even system of governance understands that you need a proper category of placing women in those departments and as well as the ministry. That is my suggestion, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. The next speaker will be
Are you back,
Lydia.
Tebuko? Can I
Yes,
just,
ma'am, I'm
before
back.
you continue, can I request that can everyone that speak, can you please open your videos if it's possible? Because for them to broadcast us directly on 408, we need to have our videos open. So if it is not open, they will just put a flag and that will be the one that will be there. Lydia, I have spoken, Honorable Modise, because you also had problems. So we are now having, and Leah, I think Leah have also, have Leah spoken? Leah have spoken?
Yes.
Have Lydia spoken?
Doctor. Yes, now it's doctor.
Lydia have spoken, so it is Dr. Tembekwai. Okay. So I hope you have the other names there.
Okay, Leah, you will follow after doctor.
Okay.
Leah, you will follow after
Leah
doctor.
have spoken.
It's fine.
Leah have spoken. It will be Lydia. Leah have spoken.
Okay. Okay.
So that doctors.
Is it my turn now? No. Is it my turn?
Yeah. Can other people please mute mics? That's why we have the feedback.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thanks for this opportunity. My first question will be based on the report that was given by the Financial and Fiscal Commission. They mentioned something very crucial to say there is an absence of an approved gender policy across all municipalities. And that to me is a problem to say, but we are reporting, the Mpumalanga is reporting today where on which gender policy are they basing their report if there is such a discovery. Let me proceed and come to the information that was given by by Neil in connection with the statistics within the province. And to say what he presented to us today is definitely a contradictory towards the reports that we are receiving today. He gives us a clear picture that there is a problem in Mpumalanga with regard to this section, giving us clear statistics on how many women are suffering, how many women are abused, and so on. But at the same time, when those that are given an opportunity to give information to us, they present the opposite of what is reflected by the statistics. For an example, there was information given by Jennifer Ngowe that says in all regions, all poverty alleviations has been done. Whereas under the statistics, it doesn't happen so. So my question is, why do we give contradictory information to all those listeners, 221 listeners in the country and the world as large? I would just would like to know, because we have to receive the correct information. And a mention was made that when it comes to combating poverty, there is a section on amakhosikazi, those from the traditional leaders, the wives of the traditional leaders, who are linked specifically to the government. And then they are also linked to this existing program, which means they get everything, whatever they need. What about the higher percentage of women-headed families that are suffering in poverty? Is there no possibility that those women can be identified and also be linked to this so that they can at least have food, at least have a basic need, which is food, for them to can survive? I need an answer to that, because here there is a big problem. The third question. The first presentation was done in KZN, and there we saw all municipalities giving us, their report. Here it's Atlanzeni district only. Atlanzeni district can never be used as a representative of other districts that are in Mpumalanga. It can never, it's a limitation of facts, limitation of info. You can never ever generalize by using Nhlanzeni to say it's the right thing to be done. So I just want to know, why is it only information on Nhlanzeni? And why did the financial people use only 4 provinces to give us the information? And Mpumalanga is not even reflected. That is not how the rules of research work. The rules of validity and reliability are not applied in this manner. So I would like to have answers towards that. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Now it's time for Sebongile Makushe. Sebongile, it's your time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity. And I would like,
Before you continue,
yes, ma'am.
before you continue,
Yes, Deputy Chair.
May I please? Yeah, no, it's not the first person that are asking. It's not the first person that are asking as to why Nhlanzeni. We are starting today in Mpumalanga, and Nhlanzeni was the district that was available because we are taking this district per district. So on the 24th of February, we will finalize Mpumalanga in terms of the districts, and after that we will have a high-level engagement with the executive of this province, the premier and MECs. So since it's the second person that are asking the same question, I think we need to clarify it now before we continue. So that is all that I wanted to say. Thank you.
No, thank you very much for clarity, Honorable Deputy Chair. Sibongile. Ma'am Sibongile. Ma'am Sibongile. Okay.
Yes, I was
okay.
trying to unmute. Is it an afternoon already? Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for the opportunity given to us today. Now, a lot of presenters have presented, and I would like to acknowledge and receive the presentations as presented. However, there were some issues that I wanted to raise, and funny enough, Doctor just raised most of them now. But I would like to speak basically on the issue of our political and civic life as women, because I'm thinking that maybe the main problem that we have of not implementing some of this policy direction that we have is because of the fact that we do not have enough women representatives. When you look even in the municipalities, as they have said, even now, the statistics, you don't find a lot of women councillors there. So if you can't have women championing issues of women, how do you then expect that we are going to reach our goals as per the charter if there are no women representatives in every sphere of governance? Because now they highlighted that the policy, when it comes to municipalities, there is no gender policies in most of these municipalities. They did not say all. And when you speak of gender policies that are there, it must also speak on not only representation of women, it must speak to the empowerment of women. Whether is it through businesses that women are getting to the state, which is your local governments or local municipalities. If there is nothing in that space to say, listen, there are women in Nhlanzeni or in Mbombela or in Mpumalanga. Let's ensure that when there's contracts coming out, we monitor directly that 50% of those contracts would go to women, so we'll know that women are empowered. Then when we speak of education, we must ensure that women would get your bursaries and everything to ensure that they are empowered with education so they can be able to stand on their own. Because initially, is it Neil said, the poverty of women is very high in Mpumalanga particularly. And therefore that makes us vulnerable to a lot of all this GBVs going on. So if we are not empowered, then how do we then ensure that all this gender-based violence ayaphela? So that is basically what I think we should be looking at, ensuring that we empower women, one. Number two, still in the empowerment of women, we must ensure that there is enough representation of women in all these government structures, local government to national, so that the policies that are there, we ensure as women that they are being implemented in all the spheres. If that doesn't happen, we are forever going to have lama meetings and sessions and parliamentary fight, women parliament and everything, and nothing is going to happen at the end of the day. So and it's not assisting us. But all in all, Swavile lama presentations, and we welcome them. Siyabonga.
Much, ma'am, and Dr. Tebogo Ngabinde. Dr. Ngabinde.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. Allow me, Chairperson, to say all protocol observed to respect the meeting and all participants.
Dr. Ngabinde.
Chairperson, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
yes,
Chairperson, I had sent my greetings to the leadership that is in the meeting and had said I request to say protocol observed to respect all participants in the meeting. Chairperson, I am from Nkangala District Municipality, and perhaps to safely say the general manager under which gender and your women's empowerment is housed under. And to just confirm, as the deputy chair indicated, that our presentation will be on the 24th, and we are indeed preparing that presentation. But then to come to today's discussion, I would just want clarity, Chair, to say, can it be clarified for us that the gender equality bill, is it not coming back? We are now sitting with the national strategy that has just been released, because the discussion on the gender equality bill has died a natural death, and it's concerning because some of the issues that have been raised today, I think, were actually in the main issues covered in the gender equality bill. That would, in many ways than one, be a legislation for the Women's Charter. So that's my first question. The second question, yes, I agree with Dr. Tembegwai, Uguti, the statistics do not tally. But perhaps an important lesson that I want to draw from that is that we need to be able to implement programs as informed by research. Because unfortunately, Honorable Tembegwai, when we are in municipality level and we conducting all sorts of these programs, if we are not backed up by research that says this is an area that you need to focus on, we will unfortunately not know if we are making the impact that is expected for us to be made. And unfortunately, we will find ourselves in this situation that we are now finding ourselves that says, we can safely say, yes, we are actually on all corners of Nkangala and trying as much as possible to empower women socio-economically, culturally, and otherwise. But unfortunately, we might just not be reaching where it's really needed because we are not using research. And such research for us is an eye-opener that then says, that directs us to say, focus here in the main, that is where you are needed. And that, for me, then takes me to the third aspect that was covered by the Fiscal Commission, to say, we have been talking about gender budgeting, but at local municipalities, at your local municipality level, the reality is that it's a competing priority, Honorable Tembegwai and members. It's a competing priority that says women communities wants to see roads, wants to see bridges, wants to see houses. So don't tell us about women empowerment. And we're saying, but in building the roads and in building the houses and include them so that we talk to the economic emancipation of women in these projects. Again, the issues of male dominance comes across. Who are the ones that have got your grade A, Bs, and grade Es? There's a selected few, which is why when we say we have empowered women, we seem to be talking about a very small component, because unfortunately, those are the people that are getting into these opportunities. The others, it's a daily bread thing because they would just be subcontracted to make sure that they mix the cement. That money is not making a major impact. Yes, it does provide bread and butter, but it's not really making them participate in the mainstream economy. Lastly, the gender policy. I will not try and answer for the absence of a gender policy in the in the province, because I know us to be having one, but I don't know. Umam Nandi of the Office on the Status of Women is here. She will answer that. But for us as local municipalities, SALGA does have a gender policy. SALGA does have an integrated transversal policy that guides all of us. We were supposed to, each one of us as districts in Mpumalanga, through our SALGA Mpumalanga, make sure that we translate that into local municipality perspective. Nkangala has done that, and it has then further taken into its local municipalities, because with the integrated strategy, it has identified critical areas for us to focus on. So I will not answer if at a provincial level. I will only answer so far as local government is concerned, because I know that as a district, in Nkangala district, we do have the policy presented by SALGA, and that is the policy that we use to guide our programs. And perhaps the OSW will then talk to their part. Lastly, and very lastly, Chairperson, the issue of institutionalizing gender and women's empowerment is of fundamental importance. You know, we limit this thing to saying when women are in senior positions, we have arrived. But the truth is that the issues that needs to be brought even more forward is how, as we get into that or into those higher positions, we then translate and make sure that gender issues do not fall off the hook. And unfortunately, because of the environment that I've mentioned the first part, that you compete, they are not as institutionalized as we want to believe. And it's important that we institutionalize them. We were forcing as Nkangala to make sure that we go through all our local municipalities just to fight for the inclusion of gender and women's empowerment in the IDP. That's institutionalizing gender issues at a very basic fundamental level, because that's the Bible of the local government. So if they are not there, how else will they find space? And that is for us a bigger thing that we need to perhaps focus on, institutionalizing this gender equality and women's empowerment, and being held accountable by yourselves to say, please bring the reports, because we know that if once you regularize wanting these reports, people start coming to us wanting us to implement. But so long we keep quiet, and then after 1 year we ask, in the year that you are not there, we are shut down in ways that are not even nice. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Your point is noted, Doctor. Now it's
I'm experiencing a problem. It seems as if, am I audible?
Yes, Deputy Chair, you're audible.
It seems as if Honorable Modise have got a problem. Can we have now Nonka Mbonambi? Nonka? If Nonka is not there, can we have Mtsepi Siboza? Mtsepi? Mtsepi? She have also indicated that you want to speak. Who is there?
Chairperson.
Is it Nonka? Fine, continue.
I can see. Yes. Of economic empowerment. An organization empowers women through skill training. And the area we've actually been able to is Ehlanzeni. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. And what we've realized is that we've realized that mostly things like relief funds are made available for people that have access to computers or merely like the internet. And most women from rural areas don't have access to such. So how does the municipality then assist those women that live in rural areas that do craft and sell their work, their beadwork within the street? Because that's the only way they make their living. How do they then support these women that don't have access to computers, the internet, and actually can't afford to go to the city or the CBD and actually fill out a form? And my second question had to do with like art therapy and education in schools. And then do they actually have those programs in school? Because we found that as we've traveled around the country, those programs actually assist with gender-based violence within schools and within communities, because then young people have these conversations amongst themselves and come up with solutions. Those are the only two questions I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nonka. Can we have Lydia Moruane? Lydia, have you spoken before? Lydia?
Hello?
So we still have Mtetepi Sibozo. So if that is the case that the people have now finished speaking, can we allow some of the presenters to respond if there is anything that they need to respond to? And also for the clarity of the issue of Nkangala and Gertsibande, we will definitely come back and we will have a full session for the two districts, because the indication was that they are not available today, and we are going to continue with our.
Hello?
Can I please be allowed to finish speaking, and then I will allow you to speak? Can we just respect one another, please? Can I be respected? So I just want to make that indication, and then let me then now allow Nomonde, because I remember you spoke first and then you said you will speak later. Nomonde?
Afternoon leadership was here again. The staff present everyone. So just firstly, for me, gender-based violence affects all of us, especially Black women. Reason number one, for us as women not to be economical free, it's because of how some of the policies the government operates, in a way that you apply, you are looking for a job, let's say Kwamaspala or in a traffic department, they will tell you about age. Remember, there was iskhathi here in South Africa where there was no job opportunities. So people who were on that period, what do we do about them? And especially if are women. Today I'm 38 and I cannot get a job from, let's say, a government. Then number two, I'm so disappointed in women in politics, because sinivotele nina in trusting you. Yes, there's a lack of women there in the Google and representations, but you don't work with us as women on the ground. Can I just make an example? we want to hear that women in parliament have fought, has stood and say, Tina, we are not attending this session because these laws are not passed. These laws are not working for women at the ground. Leadership, women from the politics, we want to see example from you. You know, when things like this happen, we remember Mama Winnie Mandela and Simbona as failures, Nina, because you are not fighting for us. You are not at all leadership. Let us all strategize. As women on the ground, as women who know issues that are happening. Work with us so that we can fight this. I heard Mam Shiba earlier mentioning something about SONA. Ever since 94, there will be a budget that is put out there for women empowerment. What happens to that budget? Do women in politics follow that? Ukuthi abantu bethu besifazane, especially black women in the ground, they are poor. Do anyone of you there make sure ukuthi women la esiphila nabo ekuhlaleni, they have businesses? Leadership, I still trust in women. I'm a feminist. I believe in women. That's why kuzobonakala ukuthi ngathi ngiyathetha ngikwatile, but I still have hope in you. Looking at this charter, we were just invited to come and join this meeting. We don't know anything about this charter. Who drafted it? In order for this charter, every woman must women in politics or the Premier's office needs us as organizations who are working with women each and every day. There must be a budget for this charter. Tina, as women who are working in the ground, we go as far as deep rural areas next to the border, making a workshop without anything. The office of the Premier in 2019 called us in a meeting at Nutting House, promising us this and that, but up until today, there's nothing. We gave them our budget, we gave them everything. Up until today, we have nothing. Then, I want to talk about food security. Ngonile laphana kulama stats, it says that most yabafazi bayalamba. So, what is our strategy for that? We need economical rights. We need land. There are so many women who want to do agriculture. What do you say about them? Women who want to do agriculture. Like Carolina Langsala Kona. Abamama banensimu la, babangi insimi, babangi space. There's not enough space, but bazondana bodwa because there's no space. And I'm from Gersiband district. I'm surprised, says Gersiband in Mpumalanga is the only region that has minerals, kangaga. Nyayiboni with bank. Ilana utoli mineral up until down there in Chief Albert Luthuli. So Lutholama minerals. But still women are one opportunity. And how do we fight this patriarchal men abangafuna ukutsenza ama business in mining companies? How do we fight the white monopoly men abangafuna ukuthi sifake ama business down there emayini? And lastly, lama phepha adingwa igovernment ukuthi ube nayo before utenderisha. Is that favorable for us women? Ngithatha imali. Angithi manje ndothi uzoyithola kanjani uhlele khoneni? But how are we getting helped? Then lastly, baholi bami, ngicela ukuthi sibe namaqiniso. As much as sithi sithanda abafazi, as much as we are being abused, we are abused, some of us, because we don't have an income. Labantu sithembele kibo vele. Can we just, this time, kungabi isicamtho? It's not the first time. Kunokuba noma women's parliament. I want ukuthi ama-outcomes akhona lawo ma-women's parliament athini. Because up to today, asazi ukuthi kuthiwane kulama women's parliament and what are their outcomes. So leadership, angikwatanga, but I feel iyangikwatisa lento ukuthi yes, we have women as recognized as leadership, but they are not fighting for us. If you need us, ground forces women, we can go there and demand these in those. That's why earlier in the chat, I was asking, is there anyone from Total Shutdown in this group? Because I know those young women, they can fight. Amanda leadership, thank you.
Thank
you very much.
Okay. Now, I think Honorable Modise, she was the last one. So I can just give back to you so that you can get the responses from the presenters.
Hello?
It's back to you, Honorable Modise.
Okay. Thank you very much, Deputy Chair. Deputy Chair, I need your indulgence. There are 3 hands. Now, I don't know, maybe because I was getting in and out. Those hands, what are we saying about it? There are 3 hands.
There was only one more person that didn't speak, that indicated before, and that is Mtsetsepi Siboza. I don't know. I'm using a different device, so I cannot see who is the other people. But I think if it's on your discretion, you can ask them to speak if they are still, if you see them there, because we are calling this. But if people are from other districts, they will still get an opportunity. Like
no, I'm at Ehlanzeni. I'm here at Ehlanzeni.
But we've been calling you, May. We've been calling you.
I've been responding, but without no success. I've been shouting when you talk to me. I thought you never heard me. I'm still waiting even now.
You can speak because you have indicated. It's just that we have really called you, but it's fine.
Yes, you have been calling me, but
excuse me, Chair.
Don't fight.
Sorry, Chair.
Don't fight. Don't fight. Don't shout. We understand sometimes the technology doesn't work with us, so we don't have to fight.
Yes, my dear, that's what I'm trying to explain.
I'm saying let me Mtsetsepi can speak because we know technology is always sometimes. So that's why I say don't shout. We are women and we need to set an example that we want South Africa to be a country that can take us forward. So, Maziboza, you can speak because really you have indicated long ago.
Yes, my dear, I've been trying to speak, but unfortunately I couldn't go through. I'm sorry, it's not my fault. It's the technology part of it, and it's my first time to enter. I'm sure you hear me.
Excuse me,
what I wanted to bring home is, I'm Mtsetsepi Siboza. I'm staying here in Nelspruit at Ehlanzeni district. I'm staying on a farm. I'm a farm dweller with a small plot. What I wanted to know, my ward is Ward 38, where I'm serving the BEC committee. But my complaint today is, I can hear of the charter that assists women. Women are involved in most of the things, the project which are being, women are being empowered by the government and different departments. But my worry is, what about us? Because all the projects, all the programs, mostly here around Nelspruit, people who stays on the farm, people who work on the farm are not involved in anything. I've never been in the meeting where old women on the farms are invited to join other women
for the trust, the people who are staying in trust, for the people who are staying on the urban areas. We are not involved in anything. Elderly people, disabled people, widowed people on the farm are now around Nelspruit. We are not involved. The project does not involve us. Everything that has to cater for women are just not catering for us on the farms. I want to know, when do you people tend to assist us? You're talking about project, you're talking about small business where you empower women. We are not involved. So that's what I want to find out, because all the programs that the government issued out to assist the women in all the areas, but those projects does not cater for farm workers or farm dwellers. That is my input for this afternoon.
Thank you, Lazy Boza.
Yes, madam.
Yeah, I saw a message from Honorable Violet Siwela that is requesting that you contact Mayor Violet Sizani Siwela. So I think that is immediately for the issue of you as a woman that is a farm dweller. That is a response that immediately came through. So I'm sure she will be able to get from the host officials your contact details, and we will contact you. So
please, my dear.
That deals with the people that indicated earlier that they want to speak. We want to come to the point where we will allow some of the things to be responded to. Other issues that have been raised, we will have, after the session with the 2 other districts, we will have an engagement with the Premier and the MECs, mayors, district mayors, and everyone to raise the issues that we have been raised here that is practical, that can be solved by these issues. The other issues, we will take it forward, because the review of the Women's Charter is not only to review the articles in the Charter, but it's also to make sure that government respond to the issues and the areas where there is still a lack and a want from our people. But before I continue to give over to those that will respond to some of the issues, I just also want to acknowledge the presence of our president of SALGA, Councillor Nkadimeng. She's also in attendance, and other members of the NA and the NCOP, particularly I think from Mpumalanga is Honorable Audrey Maleka, Honorable Violet Siwela, someone that I'm working with very closely in the Northwest Province, and also Honorable our leader, Lisoma. I don't know, particularly with regards to the issues of land, if Mina is still there, whether she wants to say something. We will allow. But if there is no issue that you want to raise, let us then begin with the States SA. Neil, is there anything that you feel that you need to respond to?
Good evening, colleagues. Hello, ma'am, again. I don't think there's been a specific question to Stats SA, but a number of people have mentioned some of the statistics that we have produced. And I must say that I think we can re-emphasize looking at the statistics, particularly about poverty, that most of the statistics, not only the recent statistics, but over time, re-emphasizes the fact that women are much more vulnerable to poverty and also to hunger than the male peers, and also the male-headed households. So in that regard, I think it's absolutely spot on what has been mentioned by people. And of course, that raises the question, what to do about it. And again, that's not like my former boss, Dr. Pari Lotla, used to say, statisticians don't have taste buds. So it is up to this esteemed forum to decide, what the best avenue forward is to alleviate this poverty and to alleviate the vulnerability. But it would seem as if issues like unemployment and inability to access certain resources, plays a very, very large role in the vulnerability experienced by women. The last point that has been mentioned by a number of speakers relates to violence against women and also sexual violence against women. And there I must say, and I must re-emphasize, because I've mentioned, I think, a number of times, that unfortunately the statistics that we do have currently at Stats SA from 2 surveys are both probably underestimating the real situation on the ground. And there are a lot of methodological reasons for it, but mostly it's because people are interviewed in a face-to-face case talking about intimate partner violence and also intimate partner violence that relates to sexual activity. And many people are not willing to really give honest answers to that, for a variety of reasons. So I think whilst the data we do have are therefore very indicative and also worrying, I think the situation is probably even more worrying if you take into account that we're probably underestimating it. I think that's the only things that I could add for now, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil. We will allow the FFC to, if there is anything that you think you need to respond to before we will give the Commission on Gender Equality, Commissioner Lutuli. And Tuli, we will now give Commissioner Rockman on Monday if there is any specific issue that needs response.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just wanted to clarify, I was referring to the draft Gender Responsive Budgeting Framework, which is a national policy initiative. We did not make reference to specific gender policies in the Mpumalanga province at provincial or local government level. And then I think we must just emphasize the importance that we really use the data and the research that are being produced across government. Stats SA, Commission on Gender Equality, the FFC, we all sit with such valuable data sets of information. And also as a government really needs to begin to practically use the data in our planning, our budgeting, and our monitoring. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner Rockman. Also, Dr. Tembakwayo and Honorable Siwisa is also members from the National Assembly that is in our presence. And Honorable Siwisa have been with us since this morning. So we appreciate their presence in our event. Nomonde, is there anything that you want to add to what the Commissioner have said?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to also add that the findings of the study also included Health Sibande district municipalities, the Mkondo local municipalities, as well as the Malahleni. So that study also included some of the district municipalities and local municipalities of Mpumalanga. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. We will now, Commissioner Ntuli, I think there is quite a few issues that was also raised. Possibly you will assist to respond to that.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. And also just to bring it to the attention of the participant that the chairperson for the Commission for Gender Equality, Commissioner Tamara Matebula, is also in attendance. She is with us here. Well, there were no direct questions that were sent to CGE, but there are issues that were mentioned that we feel as CGE we can respond on. Like, we keep on complaining that we are not achieving gender equality, yet we have a lot of tools that we can use to advance women, to close the inequity gap. We need to use these tools, put them into practice. They are not only made to decorate our offices. Let us use them and close the gap on gender equality. Implementation of these tools continue to remain a challenge for the province. And what remains a challenge for provinces across is the issue of non-implementation of policies. When you look at us as a country, South Africa in general, Mpumalanga in particular, we have good legislations that can really advance women and persons with disabilities in a way that we cannot explain. But the issue of implementation of policies also continue to remain a challenge. One speaker raised the issue of the gender bill. As the Commission for Gender Equality, we feel that the gender bill, the process, need to be resuscitated. Reason being that in a country where you want to deal with issues of gender equality, but you don't have a policy, which is a binding document in that area, it remains a challenge. Because what we are happening now, we are operating with a framework. The limitations that are brought by the framework is that public sector has a tendency of responding to frameworks because they are usually developed by government. But when it comes to the public sector, you can't hold, private sector, you can't hold the private sector accountable with a framework, but you can hold them accountable with a policy. That is why whatever that is being said in the Employment Equity Act and whatever that is said in the Skills Development Act and all these labor laws or preferential procurement matters and so on, it's easy to hold both private sector and public sector accountable because it's a policy. The last step of the gender bill, I remember, it was at a stage where it said Parliament said robust engagement of women in rural areas is not visible enough in the bill. That's where the process was left at. What needs to be done now is to go back, resuscitate the matter of the gender bill. That will assist us in the transformation agenda of the country in general and of the province in particular. The other thing that we have noticed as a Commission for Gender Equality in our engagement with municipalities, they have beautiful IDPs, well crafted. And when you look at the IDPs, you can see that at the end of the day, there will be some sort of inequalities that has been addressed or some sort of transformation. But at the end of each financial year, when you check the status reports or the annual reports of municipalities, we actually don't see the outcome and the impact which has been an expectation during the period of implementation. What we need to do now moving forward, we need to ascertain that what is being said in the IDPs is being clearly reflected at an impact level, at a status level where the reports are being crafted. Compliance also is another limitation that we need to work on so that we move forward. One speaker earlier mentioned issues around farm workers. The plight of farm workers and the plight of domestic workers are some of the socio-economic challenges that we continue to experience. What needs to be done here, municipalities in their planning and everything, they need to have specific, dedicated, transformative programs and projects that are going to change the life and the status of the farm workers in their respective municipalities and domestic workers in their municipalities. I think for now, Honorable Member, on behalf of the Commission for Gender Equality, we have shared our inputs as part of our closing remarks as requested by the Honorable Deputy Chairperson. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner, but I don't think it will be fair for your chairperson to be with us for the whole day and not also just say something. Commissioner Tamara Matebula, if there is anything that you want to add, to what have already been said by Commissioner Ntuli, we will allow you, by virtue of the fact that you've been with us the whole day and you are indeed the chairperson of the commission. Commissioner Matebula. If she's not.
Honorable member? Yes, she has been here most of the duration. I haven't checked. Yes, I haven't checked. Yes, I haven't checked her in the last 5 minutes.
No, it's fine. We just wanted to show it as a gesture for the fact that she have really attended for the whole day. So if Councillor Nkadimeng is also still on the platform from Salga, we will then allow her to say something on behalf of the municipalities before we will close the meeting. Councillor Nkadimeng, Tembi. If she's still there. Councillor Nkadimeng, if she's not there, then we will continue. The input from Tlazeni, I don't know whether there is anything that the MMC want to respond to.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Yes, you may speak.
Chair?
Yes, Councillor
MMC? Okay, no, thank you, Chair. Even though we have answered the first question of why the Tlazeni only, we have responded to that, and also Mamva has responded to the other question. But I just want to answer the question that says then there are women who are seated in the rural and they don't have access to the offices. We have partnered with Santam and Safaria to build a youth-friendly facility, but this will be for a long term. So in the meantime, those who are staying in the rural, we are working hand in hand with the municipality, the local municipalities. They must utilize the transversal offices of the municipalities to assist them. This is the only one that I want to raise. And also, Honorable Chair, I just want to raise, because we are still going to go to another district, I will propose that maybe we have a format of reporting, because they were raising some issues of numbers. So we didn't fill in the numbers because we didn't have the format, but we have those numbers on the GBV. So I just wanted to respond on those two questions. And also the last question that Ma'am Violet has responded on, the mom, I can't remember the same name, mom who was staying in 138. We will also escalate these issues with the Mbombela transversal office so that they must assist there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
thank you very much, Councillor. Anyone that still have any input, we are still in Mpumalanga. We will be back on the 20th for the yes. Thank you very much, Honorable Member. So for those that who's speaking here,
Dr. Tembekwaya.
Yes, Doc.
I just need the number. The person who put the number is, I think it's Violet. The numbers are 9. There's one number short. Ask her to go back to the chat and give us the correct number, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sure she have heard you and she will do that. Thank you.
Chairperson, just sorry to interrupt you. I've corrected the number.
Let the honorable.
So can you repeat it? Can you repeat it? It has moved up.
Okay, Chair. With your permission, Chair, I can quickly give them my number.
Honorable Siwela, can you
Yes.
please put your number on the chat group?
I did.
So
I
that
did.
they can-
Thank you so much.
Yeah, but now it is moved up, and some of us is
Okay.
technologically
All right.
challenged. So
I will
please do
report.
it
I will
again.
repeat it, Chair, with your
Thank
permission.
you. Thank you very much.
You.
Can I now, just on the way forward, Mpumalanga, Eslanzeni was the first district we have just started. We are still going to have the 2 remaining districts. And after that, we will have an engagement at a high level with the government of Mpumalanga in total. Issues that is directly linked to districts, municipalities, and what government services. We will make sure that it reaches the ears, and we have developed a system of follow-up with regards to issues that we raise with provinces and even at the level of the National Women's Parliament. We have been doing well with regards there too. So that will be the way forward for Mpumalanga. For KwaZulu-Natal, on the 19th of February, we hope to finalize the outstanding districts because there are some people still from the morning session that is here. So we will be trying to finalize all the districts, including the 2 or 3 in the Western Cape before the end of March. The whole process, we want to finalize it before the end of March. So that will be the issue in terms of the way forward. We will now give to the Honorable Audrey Maleka to do the vote of thanks. Audrey, over to you.
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson. I want to greet everyone in the platform. I want to take this opportunity to thank all participants on our Women Charter Review led by Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, Mayor Sylvia Lucas. I want to thank the Speaker of Honorable Busishiba for the welcome remarks, and Mr. Rocks for the State SA, and the commissioners and the MMC, Councillor Mashiho. We want to appreciate all those who participated today and for the comment and the presentation that were made and the input. We are looking forward to see women empowering themselves. As the Deputy Chair already said that we are still going on with the program in Mpumalanga. We are still going to visit Nkangala and Hertsibande regions. We want to thank you for your participation and for your input. May God bless you, and don't forget to wear your mask and sanitize and wash your hands. Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much to everyone, and particularly also thank you, Comrade Violet Siwela, for your assistance. You have actually assisted us in the fact that I also want to ask Nomonde, the feminist, to contact you on the issues that she have raised. There are some of the issues that we just can't respond to here because we are doing oversight over government, but some of the issues where we can assist, particularly what you have done, we do appreciate it. And with that said, I want also to express our appreciation to those that organized this events. Thank you very much. Thank you to the province. We are still soldiering on, and we will make sure that we develop a just dispensation for the women of South Africa. Thank you very much. With that said, the meeting stands adjourned. Goodbye.
Bye.
Travel safe, those that are traveling.
Bye. Long live Chairperson.
Long live,
Bye.
long live.
Long live.
Bye.